Hello, everybody. Welcome to the No BS Zone. I'm Bernie Goldberg, for those of you who don't know, and I'm here with my good friend from the Rocky Mountain state of Colorado, John Daly. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good, Bernie. How about you?
Good. What I want to do today is talk about some stories that haven't gotten a lot of play, but I think are important. And let's start with the fact that President Donald J. Trump has named Jeanine Pirro, who, for those of you who don't know, is one of the Mensa candidates on the Five on Fox News, as the interim United States Attorney for Washington, D.C. This is a very important position, Washington, D.C. Chief Prosecutor. And he named her interim U.S. Attorney probably because that way he doesn't have to put her through a Senate hearing, which would be pay per view, because the Democrats would tear her apart. Now, look, she was a prosecutor in suburban New York. I don't know if she'll do a good job or a bad job. That's not the point. The point is that she was named for one reason, and you know what that reason is, John, because she's loyal to Donald Trump. Let me give you a few examples. She defended him during the Access Hollywood tape scandal. Okay, you remember that scandal where he said he could grab women but between their legs and he'd get away with it because he's a star. According to one news report, and I'm going to read this, following Trump's loss in 2020 in the 2020 election, Pirro pushed false allegations of election fraud involving voting machines and was later among Fox News employees named in the Dominion Voting Systems defamation lawsuit for broadcasting false claims about the company. Fox, you may recall, settled for $787 million.
Or
So
was
here's why what I'm wondering this. What's next? If there's an opening on the Supreme Court, does Jesse Waters get named to that position? I mean, this is important because Donald Trump cares. And tell me if I'm going too far, if you think this is unfair, what I'm about to say, John. Donald Trump cares about loyalty to Donald Trump. That's what comes first. And what's best for the United States of America comes second at best. Now, that's a harsh statement. Too harsh?
no, I don't think so. And it's not just loyalty. So we've seen this song and dance many times now. Donald Trump, he watches, by all accounts, he watches a lot of television, and what he sees on the boob tube, as they used to call it back in my day, often influences the decisions that he makes in office. There's apparently I don't know if you even read this, Bertie, but there's apparently some evidence suggesting that Trump actually watched Escape from Alcatraz on cable the night before he went out and declared that he was going to reopen Alcatraz as a
I,
federal
I
prison.
have not heard that, and I am on a scale of 0 to 1 million. My surprise factor is zero.
Yes, but cable news, obviously, that's what he's into, and Fox News in particular. That network carries a lot of weight with this president. The network has served as weirdly as an audition reel of sorts for for filling roles in his administration and elsewhere. And when I see this stuff, it's like you said, yeah, it's more about him than it is the country for sure. But what gets me is, we've heard all this talk about DEI from the MAGA riot over the past few years. There are, of course, legitimate criticisms of DEI hiring, affirmative action. Bernie, you and I have written about these topics. But critics of those policies have been arguing in favor of meritocracy, the practice of hiring people on the basis of their skill and ability. Donald Trump very rarely does that. He hired when you hire someone on from Fox News because they kiss your butt, that's not meritocracy.
Right.
Again, people like, Pete Hegseth, RFK Jr., they were not hired on their skill and their ability and their, qualifications for the job. They are dangerously unqualified for their jobs. Trump's hiring practices would actually seem to be much closer to affirmative action, but instead of checking off, ethnic diversity boxes, he's checking off suck up boxes. Who's the biggest suck up? To him, there's far more, to him that is far more important than whether or not someone's actually qualified for the position. So I feel like there's a lot of hypocrisy involved in this too.
Excellent point. Let's move on to topic number two. which I'm afraid it again involves Donald Trump. And again, this story hasn't gotten the play. It's gotten some play, but not enough, I think. Paramount, the company that owns CBS and CBS News, is in talks with Donald Trump to settle a $20 billion with a B dollar lawsuit against CBS for the way 60 Minutes edited the Kamala Harris interview before the 2024 election. Okay. And the reason they're in talks to settle this lawsuit is because CBS is also in talks with Skydance Media to sell the company. So if CBS wants to sell the company, it has to get the approval of Donald Trump's FCC. So settling a lawsuit with him might pave the way for that sale. I hope you follow that. Okay. Now, I might have edited the interview differently. I don't want to get into the weeds of how you edit interviews, but every legal scholar this side of Neptune, every legal scholar says this lawsuit is beyond frivolous. It's ridiculous. A judge probably wouldn't even let it get to a jury. Yet CBS is likely to settle to appease Donald Trump to smooth the way for the FCC to approve the sale. And here's why this is important. This is part of Donald Trump's war on the media. Now, I don't usually agree with Bernie Sanders. I don't ever agree with Bernie Sanders, but he wrote a letter to Sherry Redstone, who runs Paramount, who has the biggest shareholder, the controlling interest in Paramount, again, the company that owns CBS News. Here's what Bernie Sanders said to Sherry Redstone: rewarding Donald Trump with tens of millions of dollars for filing this bogus lawsuit will not cause him to back down on his war against the media and a free press. It will only embolden him to shake down, extort, and silence CBS and other media outlets that have the courage to report about the issues that Trump may not like. Bingo. That is the point. Trump doesn't want any bad news reported about him. And filing lawsuits, even when they're frivolous and he doesn't stand a chance to win, defending those lawsuits is costly. And he's trying to intimidate other news organizations beyond CBS News. Don't say anything bad about me, even if you have every right to, because I'll sue you. He sued ABC and won $15 million because they said something false about him. But saying something false is not necessarily grounds for winning a lawsuit, by the way. You have to be reckless and do it maliciously. He's out to intimidate every news media in America to be very careful before they say something bad about him, because he might sue them, might cost them money. And the parent companies, not the news organizations, but the parent companies that own the news organizations are going to might say, take it easy on President Trump. We don't need any lawsuits. They're costly. Your thoughts, John?
Yeah, well, first of all, Bernie, I thought when you said that you don't disagree with Bernie Sanders often, just a quick side note. I have an aunt who still thinks you are Bernie Sanders and that I work for Bernie Sanders. It's every time when he's on TV, she'll like, "Hey, your boss." I'm like, "That's not." They don't agree on anything. So maybe I'll just send her this clip, and maybe that'll help her sort of distinguish. But
Well, she may be onto something. Nobody has seen the two of us in the same place at the same time. So I might be Bernie Sanders. You don't know.
yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I'm like, he's not Bernie Madoff either. Just so I try to
I'm definitely not Bernie Madoff.
right, right. But anyway, should Paramount settle? No. Will they settle just to move past this merger problem? I think they probably will. And like you, I think that's terrible precedent. The issue, we're everything's so tribalistic these days, but the issue here should not be whether or not somebody likes Donald Trump. It should not be whether or not someone thinks 60 Minutes is biased, or whether was practicing fair and balanced journalism with its handling of the Harris interview. It really is about freedom of the press. What Trump it should be noted that what Trump and his supporters are complaining about CBS News doing is what Fox News has done with Trump a number of times. They've edited answers in ways that made those answers sound better or less damaging than they actually were. Nobody sued Fox over those interviews, and they shouldn't have. If they had, I would have a problem with those people as well. But like you, I don't like this. For we have the traditional media. Better than anybody. Bernie has all kinds of has
Yeah,
problems. They have
let me jump in for a second.
yeah.
About that very point. I have been critical of the media. I have written op-eds in important newspapers and written books about this. I believe that there's a lot of bias in the media. I believe a lot of that bias is unfair to Donald Trump. But go on, John.
No, I mean, you're making the point. Your voice should carry a lot of weight on this because you've exposed a lot of problems with the traditional media for decades, and for you to come out and say this, I think that's important because it really is. It's about it's about principles, it's about the Constitution. You get it because if Joe Biden, if his DO, or if he had filed some sort of, not his DOJ, if Joe Biden had filed a lawsuit against Fox News, for some
Right.
bias or any kind of interview similar to this, the right would be in an uproar, and they should be in an uproar. But when it's on the other side, we're just kind of, well, yeah, it's tough to ignore that double standard.
It's because of something you and I have been talking about over and over again. Principles are either dead or on their deathbed. It depends on what team you're on. If you're on the blue team, nothing the red team does is good. If you're on the red team, nothing the blue team does is good. This is hypocrisy. If they need a definition of hypocrisy, they should just take what you said a minute ago and just that's the definition of hypocrisy. Anyway, let's move on to something that the Trump fans will like, I think. Letitia James. Remember her? She's the New York Attorney General who took Donald Trump to court for inflating the value of some of his properties, real estate properties, supposedly to get a better deal with the banks. There were no complaints. The banks were paid off. Letitia James was clearly out to get Donald Trump. He lost in court and was fined a staggering $500 million, about $500 million, which is outrageous. Well, anyway, guess what? And the suit against Donald Trump was because he filed false records, okay, to get a better bank loan. Keep that in mind because I'm going to tell you something now about Letitia James. She is being investigated by Donald Trump's Justice Department. I'm going to try not to laugh while I tell you this because she allegedly filed false documents in Virginia to get a better loan deal. Exactly the same allegations she made against Donald Trump. She said a property she bought in Virginia was her primary residence to get a better loan deal, when in fact she was the New York State Attorney General living in New York. Now, Donald Trump's Justice Department is investigating criminal charges against her. I am usually against retribution. I am against using the courts to get even. But Letitia James has this coming. I mean, too freaking bad for Letitia James. Payback is a word that rhymes with witch. And if she sued Donald Trump because she was out to get him, and now I'm tempted to use the cliche, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. She threw stones at Donald Trump, and now he's throwing stones back. I'm not I'm not losing sleep over this one, John.
Yeah, yeah, this is clearly, political retribution. I think it was the other way as well with Letitia James when a lot of those, there were more than one, case through New York against Trump that we had often talked about were politicized. Donald Trump came in with all kinds of legal trouble, as he was running or even before he was running for president again. And I think the New York stuff really tainted the whole narrative, because I think some of those other lawsuits, some of those other indictments were actually valid. I think these, you had people going well out of their way to get Trump, and that
Right.
sort of kind of tainted everything. Um, I'm against this ever being done, but yeah, it's I'm not as sympathetic to Letitia James as I am other individuals that Trump has been, using the legal system to go after. Chris Krebs is a great example. He was Trump's director of cybersecurity. I think he had something to do with Homeland Security during Trump's first term. And his biggest crime, as far as I can tell, was telling the truth about Trump losing the 2020 election.
Hold on.
Yeah,
You can't tell the truth about something Donald Trump doesn't like. What are you thinking, John?
I
Come
know.
on.
Yeah, it's wild, because I mean Trump, he's basically came out and said, I'm gonna have the DOJ find something on this guy, and we're gonna charge him with something. We don't know what. And his life has been disrupted. He's had to quit his job because he's afraid of what, that Trump will come after the company he was working for, the organization he was working for. So yeah, I have much more sympathy for these other people than I do for Letitia James. But I feel like the answer, if you're criticizing politicalization of our justice system, the answer isn't to further politicize it. It's
Yeah,
at some point I'd love to see an adult in the room just stand up and say, "We're not doing this. This
I
is the
agree
end."
with you in theory, but
Right?
Letitia James really crossed the line.
She
She
did.
she campaigned saying she was going to get him, and then she got him. And the fine of like $500 billion or something. Is that what it was? 500
I don't
million.
know if that's what it was. It was
500
ridiculous.
million. 500 million rather. Sorry. That's outrageous. That's outrageous. And if she did the same thing, if if she in fact did the same thing that she said she lived in Virginia when she was living in New York in order to get a better loan deal. Well, too bad. I mean, I don't have an ounce of sympathy. You said you have less sympathy. I have no sympathy for her. Let's move on to the last subject. A, an, a headline over an op-ed in the New York Times caught my eye. This is what it said. Jerry Springer, yes, that Jerry Springer, can save the Democrats. Jerry Springer is no longer with us. But the point was, and I will read the opinion piece, one paragraph from it, from a podcaster. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Leon Nafak. This is what he said. The Democrats need to reckon with a new reality. The electorate wants to be entertained. Instead of continuing to run highly credentialed political lifers, the party needs to embrace the idea of the celebrity candidate and find someone with sincerely held progressive beliefs, sky high name recognition, and experience winning over the kinds of voters who've supported the MAGA movement. In other words, they need to find someone like Jerry Springer, like Jerry Springer. Who does he have in mind? Maybe Oprah, George Clooney. And I wrote a column that was posted this week about Stephen A. Smith, the sports commentator and journalist, who people are actually talking about as a possible Democratic candidate to run for president. Why is this crazy? Because in the United States of entertainment, it makes sense. What the podcaster said in the New York Times and what I wrote on our website about Stephen A. Smith makes sense. Now, I'm not saying Stephen A. Smith is going to win the election. That's not the point. The point is people are coming to him. Important political people are coming to him saying, "Are you going to run? Should you run? Do you think you're going to run?" Why are they doing that? And this is the important part of all this, because we've lost faith in our traditional political system. That's why Donald Trump won the first time around. He was different. He wasn't part of the system. And neither is Oprah, neither is George Clooney, neither is Stephen A. Smith. In the United States of entertainment, this isn't a crazy idea. Thoughts, John? Am I crazy for thinking that?
Well, it's hard to discount it as a crazy idea when we've seen it before. There's there's a lot of interest from voters and celebrities. You saw it a lot. We saw it with Arnold Schwarzenegger in California. A
And
Republican.
Ronald Reagan was doing bedtime for Bonzo movies and was
Hmm.
hosting a TV show. And he
Yeah,
became governor of California, just as Schwarzenegger did years later. And then he became president of the United States. So anybody in 2016, if somebody said, or 15, let's say, you think Donald Trump is going to run? I'd say, no, he's not. In fact, I did write, he's not going to run. Who in his right mind thought Donald Trump, a TV guy with no political experience, with no philosophy, he's not going to run? Well, why is it crazy to think that Stephen A. Smith is going to run? Just as
no,
crazy as thinking Donald Trump was going to run.
yeah, no. There was, and I wrote a piece. I think it was probably early 2024, but there was a conservative study group set up where I think it was actually should be no, I think it was actually it was taken of conservative women, basically Trump supporters, who were asked, if Trump, they were given this big list of potential candidates for president, both Democrats and Republicans, said if you weren't voting for Trump, which one of these people would you want to be president? Number two, well, after Trump, so the person at the top of the list,
Can I
Oprah
guess?
Winfrey. Oh,
Oprah
Oprah.
Winfrey?
Oprah. Sorry, I looked
I
at
would have
the back.
thought Michelle Obama. Was she on the list?
Oh, she might have been, but I think Oprah was actually came in the highest. And I'm
Yeah, well,
like,
let
well, these
me
are
tell
Trump
you
supporters.
something. Let me tell you something, John. If Oprah Winfrey ran against J.D. Vance,
Mhm.
let's say J.D. Vance, and I could bet real money on this in the United States legally, I'd put a load of money on Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, I mean, she's to some people she might kind of seem like yesterday's news, but there's a lot of people, into her television stuff that are still very much into her. And power of a celebrity, JD Vance isn't a celebrity,
Exactly.
he's right. And just kind of going back to Stephen A. Smith, I like the guy. He's smart, he's charismatic, which is very helpful if you're running for office. The celebrity stuff helps. Seems like an honest guy too, which would be refreshing. But I do find it pretty depressing that we're looking to celebrities to solve our country's
But
problem.
that's precisely the issue.
Yeah,
Why is that? Because we've lost faith in the system that we have. We've lost faith in traditional politicians. You're looking like you're not sure I'm right about this. I'm anxious to hear what you think.
sure. No, I think that's part of it. That's definitely part of it. But I think a lot of it, people just aren't issues focused anymore. They're not paying attention to what politicians say. They're kind of like you said. It's the entertainment part where entertainers have a way of connecting with regular people that politicians don't. So I don't think it's as much an indictment of you know competent leaders as it is sort of we're enchanted by celebrities and we hang on their words more than we do a stuffy politician, and it's frustrating. I mean, I would love to get back to a point where the parties are nominating proven leaders, governors of states, people who have experience that actually matters. But like I said, I would say I would even throw Obama into the celebrity category. He wasn't on television, but he was very much a celebrity. This junior senator who came in with this boatload of charisma. It doesn't seem like in retrospect that it is weird that Trump won, in 2016, just based on that enchantment that people have with celebrities and personalities and charisma, and those seem to trump serious issues.
Well, the key point, and we've only touched on it tangentially, is the audience, the voters. If they don't change, if they don't say we want competent political people who know how to work the system, then why shouldn't Trump that's why Trump won. That's why Stephen A. Smith is not as crazy as it sounds. I don't think he's going to run. I don't, I'm just saying, if the electorate doesn't change, if the electorate says, I don't want to hear from Amy Klobuchar, I don't want to hear from Gavin Newsom. These are politicians, as if understandably, as if that's a real dirty word, politicians, then why not a George Clooney if you're a Democrat and a progressive? Why not an Oprah? Why not a Stephen A. Smith? And anybody who says it's crazy, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump. My final words.
Yeah,
Now,
not crazy at all. It's George. I'm not sure George Clooney would be a good pick because I don't think he's really liked that much. He's sort of seen as this elite these days. But you could come up with a number of people that I think would do really well that have no political experience whatsoever, but have a good IMDb page about their movie bio. So yeah,
that's it. That's it. Look, you're in charge of this part of the whole thing. So is it okay if I mention our YouTube channel?
oh yeah, absolutely.
We have a YouTube channel. John will tell you how you find it or what it's called. But go to it, look at the stuff we do, tell your friends if they don't have a subscription and they don't see this, they might see it days later on YouTube. And this new stuff we're putting up on YouTube, right, John?
That's right. That's right. We have a lot of classic stuff. We have stuff going way back in Bernie's timeline. We have a lot of his old Fox News appearances. Quite a bit of stuff up there. So
My
definitely
stuff, my
subscribe. What I'll
stuff,
do
my,
is I'll
my stuff at CBS on Crack Street
yeah,
has
that's
has,
up there too.
has tens of thousands of views. I mean, maybe over 100,000. I'm not sure, but there's stuff up there that you can get, and tell your friends about that too. What is it? The Bernard Goldberg YouTube channel? What's it called?
What I'll do, they'll find it if they look up Bernard Goldberg on YouTube. But I'll put a link in the show notes. So whether you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you're watching it on the website, just click on that link and go to the YouTube channel and hit subscribe, and you'll be notified when new stuff goes out there.
Great. Thanks for listening to us. I hope you found us semi-entertaining, and tell your friends, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.